biggest cover-up. Netaji's Rahasya Gatha. What happened to Netaji? Back from the dead, inside the Subhash Bose mystery, are just a few books that Anuj Dhar has written exclusively on Netaji. He surely is one of the most courageous and fearless writers of independent India. One needs to read his above mentioned books to understand he has not left any stone unturned in trying to uncover the greatest mystery of India and probably even the world. All his books are very well written and meticulously researched. He is also the founder trustee of a non-profit organization, Mission Netaji, which campaigns for the declassification of documents concerning Bose. On the occasion of the 125th birth anniversary of Netaji, we are absolutely honored and privileged to have Anuj Dhar talk us on this. Over to you, Anuj Dhar, to start the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me here. Thank you very much. Delighted to be here with you.
Please start the conversation, Anuj.
Well, I the it's a very I'm very delighted to be here, and and that you should have your first session of this year on such an auspicious occasion and day. That adds to the delight. And I am in Calcutta. This is again, we have had a very bad year, all of us. The COVID, last I, you know, 8 9 months we have no activity. I was going around giving lectures talking about Netaji everywhere, but suddenly all of us we have to restrict ourselves. So this is first time I have come out on such an occasion, and such a what a day it has been yesterday. And we had wonderful programs here in Calcutta, all over the India, and everybody is talking about Subhash Chandra Bose today, and thanks to these activities here and outside. Now, I often find it very difficult where to start and how to start. But let me, give my perspective as to what's been happening and why I am very pleased with the things as they're, and as they are unfolding. The the narrative which is, which is going around in media, that the political parties are being accused of, playing politics in Netaji's name. I am not that cynical. In fact, I'm happy that it's happening. You would recall, all of you would recall that we all were young. Baba Sahib Ambedkar and Sardar Patel were mere footnotes in history. You hardly, had anything about them in those days. Then, the changes start to happen, and starting with Kanshi Ramji, taking up the cause of Baba Sahib's legacy and his name, and Advani ji and BJP, they revived the memories of Sardar Patel, and thanks to the efforts made by the followers of these two national icons, their memories and their legacies have been given space which was long due to them. So this great change happened, and it happened due to this political awareness which happened 2 3 decades ago. I wish and hope and I pray that this is exactly what is going to happen to Subhash Chandra Bose also. Netaji stood for the country. He's liked by Indians all over the world. I have been have the good pleasure of traveling to different parts of the country and also into different parts of the world: Singapore, Hong Kong, America, England, and other places. And I've spoken about Netaji, and usually you get people from all over the all Indians from all the states, and there's an equal interest you find in people are interested about Subhash Bose. They want to talk about him, want to discuss the issue of his death, which Nandini has clearly pointed out. It's one of the biggest, most talked about mystery of our country. So even though Netaji has massive fan following and can be called a cult following for him, unfortunately he never had a state government or a political party or huge number of people backing him. So which is what is required. I often give people example of Shivaji Maharaj. I mean, we all revere Shivaji Maharaj, but reverence that Maharashtrians have for Shivaji Maharaj is incomparable, for very good reason, because even though I revere him, I so much want to pay my respect to him, but then I cannot match the reverence and which Maharashtrians have for Shivaji Maharaj for very very obvious reason, because he was one of them. So this is what should be happening about Netaji, and now that we are having, we are hearing that there's a political tussle between the BJP and TMC over Netaji's legacy. It has given us a chance to trigger some debate and discussion about Subhash Bose, and I'm sure this is happening all over the country. This would lead to awareness about him. That's why we are having this program and other programs. People, in prime time is being discussed, and which would help us to flag issues concerning Netaji, including the issue of his death. And this, I believe, in the course of time, would could help people like us in emulating the steps which were taken by the followers of Baba Saheb and Sardar Patel. And we can also hope to ensure that Netaji's legacy gets its due in due course of time. So this is a larger the context in which which comes to my mind today on 24th of January. So with these words, I think that should be the that's what I can think of at this stage. So I believe once we have a session, we have a question and answer, probably then I can throw more light. I can share my views about this and other issues which are relevant today. Thank you.
So, Anuj, the first thing that comes to the mind is that you started on this journey of Gumnami Baba. Can you take us through on that, on what exactly led to one after the other? How did you start on this? I think it's just when you read the books, it would be nice to know what made you start on, this journey. Sharing with us, please.
Thank you. Nandiji is not. I did not start with Gumnami Baba. I started with Subhash Chandra Bose. So I did not know a word about him. And in fact, uh, when I first time the idea was thrown at me, I was very angry and annoyed. I said, Subhash Chandra Bose alive in India till 85 in Faizabad. We must be crazy. My story is somewhat different. Now, my story is like my grandfather was part of British Indian Army. He fought against the INA. They were asked to go and fight the Japanese. Turns out they were Japanese and there were Indians also there. And I never saw my grandfather, but I heard about him, and I heard from my family elders that there was some kind of a revolt. They refused to fight, and so on and so forth. So I knew from my own family, my own family history, my what happened to my grandfather, that India's becoming free has to do with Subhash Chandra Bose, not the conventional government-sponsored theory of ahimsa. That some people are sitting on dharna, and that's why the British left this country. So I knew. So this was the conviction I had from very young age because of my own family history. That because don't forget, India was kept under control by Indians for the British. It's not the number of English people in India was not more than a couple of thousand, and they were all basically in 4 or 5 big cities. And it was the Indians who were doing the job for them. Take for example the incident of at Jallianwala Bagh. The standard view of looking at it, that General Dyer is the main villain in the piece, that he was the one who is responsible for the deaths of so many people, our people. No, it's not him. He only ordered to fire those people. The people who fired at our people were Indians, people of the Indian Armed Forces. And what most people are not aware of, that most of the people who killed our own people in Jallianwala Bagh, they were very much alive when India became free. They continued to live for, in fact, probably many years. They were given pension and other benefit by government of India, and the same applied to all the police officers, all those who brutalized our people in Kalapani or in Lahore Fort or Delhi's Red Fort, all the prisons, hell holes we had in our country. So India was governed by these people, and among all those people, like in security, in police, in civil, all these Rai Bahadurs, etc., the most important was the British Indian Army, with which they were ruling this country, iron fist. This army began to turn against him, and that is the main factor for India becoming free. So this is something which I knew from day one because of my family background. So this had made me, when I was growing up, a little bit more interested in. I had a little bit more admiration of Subhash Bose when I was growing up. I was never a big time Netaji devotee, but I knew I had this background. When I was in Hindustan Times in 2000, by this time there was a commission of inquiry functioning into his death. This is in 2000. And, and then, of course, this was making news, and a colleague of mine came up with the idea, senior colleague, that we should have an inquiry, about it, proper inquiry. In the print, they don't have much space, but on internet, we can write, talk as much as we can. There's endless pictures we can put. So let's do an inquiry and find out what really happened to him. So there was an inquiry organized by Hindustan Times. I was a part of it. And that's where I started, and that's where it's all started. And Hindustan Times team, concluded that the official theory of Subhash Chandra Bose's death is not correct, and which started my entire journey. As we proceed in this discussion, I would probably throw more light what happened afterward. But just to correct one point, I did not start with Gumnami Baba. My intention was always about Subhash Chandra Bose, and it was an assignment which was given to us, and we inquired objectively, and we tried to find out what really happened to him. Thereafter, of course, I've done my own personal inquiry, but whatever essentially I wrote for Hindustan Time in 2000 is absolutely correct.
Thank you so much, Anuj. So you said you started your journey from there. So now take us to the journey a bit ahead on how Gumnami Baba, went further with your research that you did. What made you
Yeah.
go so much
I mean,
further?
John le Carre died recently, so it's almost like there's a page from his novel, I believe. It would probably remind you of Tinker Tailor Soldiers by something like that. As I said, that there was a team formed, and Sitanshu Das was the head of the team. He was a former editor of Patriot. He used to work with the BBC. He had worked for a long time. He was Netaji's biographer. He had seen Subhash Bose when he was young. He was the head of the team, and we tried to find out what really happened to Subhash Bose. So we essentially we probed and we came to a conclusion that he had not died. And then Mukherjee Commission of Inquiry, which was then functioning, they summoned us to give evidence, whatever we had, whatever was the worth of this evidence. So we went, all of us, went, and we were examined by the commission on oath. I was examined. I was witness number 50. 48 was a Pranab Mukherjee. He was then former foreign minister of India. So I thought this was my footnote in history, that I was examined on the same day as Pranab Mukherjee was. After this thing got over, in Hindustan Times inquiry, we concluded that there was no the official view of Netaji's death in a plane crash in present day Taipei city is not correct. I became a little bit distressed. I said, I began to think to myself, look, if this is not correct, because then the only other theory which was very much current, which everybody was talking about, and we went about talking to people who had served in the intelligence, a politician, even journalists. And this was the India's number one conspiracy theory in those days, and even today it is. Now today, of course, you have people like General G.D. Bakshi, Subramaniam Swamy publicly talking about it everywhere. And this theory was that Netaji did not die in any plane crash. He was actually in Soviet Russia, and he was like liquidated there at the behest of Pandit Nehru. God forbid this should be true. Nothing can be more horrible than this. If it's true, God forbid. By Stalin, had him killed there at Pandit Nehru's behest. I felt very bad if this, because as I said, that we had concluded that he had not died in any plane crash. So obviously the second, the specter of the Russian angle, loomed large, and it began to sink in. I felt very bad. The man who has done so much for the country, the person who was responsible for India becoming free, that he should meet such a fate. He should die in such a horrendous situation. He should end up, in a Russian gulag. It was petrifying. I then began to make my own inquiries, even though I went on to write about them in his time, but I started inquiring on my own. Prior to it, there was an entire team, but from this time onward, it was only me alone who was doing inquiry. Of course, my reports were verified by my seniors, but that's another story. I then did not know what to do, and I was not given any beat. I was a desk journalist. I was essentially there to edit copies, and so in desperation, I began, I started firing in the dark. Whoever I would meet, whoever I thought was in a position of, uh, who probably worked in the prime minister's office, anybody who had a relative in working for the intelligence bureau or RNW, anybody I thought who would have some connect to somebody who was, in a position to know something. I began looking for the clues, and I began inquiring around. So bit by bit, this approach work. People, let's say for the sake of the argument, somebody who's worked for the intelligence bureau, obviously you won't tell anything to me. Why would he talk to even journalists? But then if his daughter probably can, probe him further. And what if daughter is my colleague? Anyway, so this is how I began to in bit and pieces here and there, and then I by fluke. I mean, there's no, it's nothing, no design. I was a nobody. I was no big shot journalist. Just by fluke, it just landed in my lap. By fluke, by chance I was able to reach somebody who in turn was connected to somebody who was very highly placed in the government, somebody who had seen the files, classified files. And then they, it was almost like a page from a, of a thriller, espionage novel. So this information started to trickle in. So the government is aware there are many classified files. There have been inquiries about this man's death in past, but they were eyewash. It is a political decision the government has to take. It's going to create a lot of problems for the country, so on and so forth. And this confirmation came, he was in Russia. Till this point, it all made sense because it was a, this pattern was already there. They know the Russian angle is there, and obviously the government is hiding, And then suddenly, the story began to change completely. And then, I was told that it's almost like, I would think, it's not on that scale, but something like Deep Throat, in Watergate scandal. So I was given to understand this is India's best kept secret.
Mhm.
And then this voice, we were in touch with him until 1985. The government has all the records. This is a very complicated case. There's going to be many, many problems if it is, it is a political, decision. I was out of, this blew my mind. 85, we were in touch with him, 85. What are you talking about? Subhash Chandra Bose, alive in 85. Rajiv Gandhi was prime minister. Netaji was, Mahatma Gandhi's contemporary. Then, oh my God, no, Netaji was not Gandhiji's contemporary. Gandhiji was older than Subhash Bose's father. Sardar Patel was 28 years older than Subhash Chandra Bose. Panditji was 9 years older than Subhash Chandra Bose. They were not contemporaries. Netaji was a contemporary of Morarji Desai. Morarji Desai was older than Subhash Bose. Morarji Bhai became our prime minister in 77. So if Netaji was alive in 85, till that, he would have been what, 88. That's okay, biological, that's possible. But I couldn't understand. So they gave me all kind of, this kind of bits and pieces came, which actually blew my mind, and but all of them have, have rung true for all these years. I've inquired and found out about. I did not know what to do. I did not know a word about this so-called Gumnami Baba. I
Hmm.
mean, as I said earlier, somebody did tell me about it earlier. When we were inquiring in Hindustan Times, I found somebody, some rustic-looking fellow, sitting there. My colleague told me, these people are from somewhere in UP, and they say that there is some Babaji who was living in, Faizabad. He was Netaji. मैंने कहा इस पागल को धक्के मार के मारने के लिए टाइम वेस्ट कर रहा है हमारा. हम तो दिल्ली में पैदा हुआ आदमी, हम लोग तो बैठ के बीटल्स के गाने सुनते थे. हम तो वी टू डू नॉर्मल थिंग्स. Why do I believe in the Baba story? The most absurd thing anyone can think of. Of course, the question does not rise, and the information coming to me from the source was they did not mention Gumnami Baba. They only mentioned 85. Then it came to my mind, look, we were inquiring about this thing, and somebody had written to us, some Doctor Banerjee or whatever, that Indranil Banerjee. Of course, it's not. I know I'm talking about. Then I thought whatever, but of course now I know he's my friend. Indranil had written to us, Doctor Indranil Banerjee from Faizabad, that Netaji did not die in 45 because he was here with us until 1985. Then I call this person, look, you written this thing, you mentioned 85, what is it about? He said, this is that Gumnami Baba thing, and I've written to you, at behest of my father, Dr. Pribhat Banerjee, who's no more. I spoke to Dr. Pribhat Banerjee. I found him to be like a sophisticated doctor, spoke in English, and he sounded like a decent doctor as they are. And he made sense. I mean, he was talking sense. He was a sensible person. This is something in it. And then thereafter, Justice Mukherjee Commission, I came to know they were going to, Faizabad to assess this case. Justice Mukherjee was going to be there. So I went there and I saw things, with my own eyes, the evidence, whatever. And from that time onwards till date, not a single piece of information has come my way which would counter that this man was nobody other than Subhash Chandra Bose. Over a period of time, of course, I filed some stories in Hindustan Times on the basis of information available to me in those days. In 2004, I wrote a book, Back from Dead, published in 2005 when Manmohan Singh was Prime Minister. I openly spoke against, government and Congress. George Fernandez released that book of mine. It was a fantastic session we had. And then, in 2005 or 6, some people, me and my people, became friends. We did not have, this, in those days, we did have all these things. We had Yahoo chat rooms. We did not even have Orkut in those days. So like-minded people, we were just sitting, we were there active on, Yahoo chat rooms. So some people got together in England and America and India, different parts of the country, and we formed a group called Mission Netaji. So, for example, Chandur Ghosh was part of it. He was in London in those days. Now he's in the next room. He's there. He must be talking to some media. And Chandur was there. Shantan was there. Shrijit Panikar was there. Shrijit was in Trivandrum, a young guy. Shrijit is very famous now. I think he's on every day. He was on television debates. So he's there. Malayalam every day is 7 to 9. He's on all, but he also makes appearances every now and then on NDT on Arnav's channel, etc. Shrijit, Vishal, all of us got together and others, and we formed a group. I said, look, we got to do something about it. And then, of course, we this is the time when we thought that it would not be possible for us to. What do we do to make thing apparent, to come to the truth and to make truth known to the world? We could either go to politicians or we could go to media, because this way you have to reach people, and we cannot do it. Political parties can do, or media can do. Media was not keen. Media problems, you go and talk to the editors. They okay, yeah, this is a historical story. You write a story for a Sunday edition, and Sunday edition, they'll write a story with giving one bite favor, one bite against, no conclusion. So it's not going to work. Nobody's going to take in media interest, because media was one which we could approach. Politicians were beyond our reach in those days. So we thought, rather than talking about Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, we will talk about the need for declassification, need for declassifying files about it.
Okay.
That is a larger issue of transparency, and declassification, transparency, what the are and still are buzzwords. And in media, here in India, anything which is in fashion, in vogue in Western countries, as you know very well, the people in Indian media, especially in those days, they are by temperament Westernized. They tend to learn everything from those countries, from the West. So you may or may not have a liking for Subhash Chandra Bose. You may not approve of him. You may even dislike him. But you can at least publicly cannot say, yes, I do not want files to be declassified. Luckily for us, in 2005, Government of India enacted Right to Information Act, which is in America and England, you have the Freedom of Information Act. So we had our version of Freedom of Information Act in 2005, and we began using it. And since that time, as I said, that my own friends went about cross checking in what I had written. And Chandrachur, of course, has become, we both have since then joined hands, and we do our own inquiries. He returned to India, and I've written, of course, I wrote a book called titled India's Biggest Cover Up, came out in 2012, in which we put a lot of information. We talked, I this is due to me, that actually what has happened because of the research done by me and others, not just me, the others who were doing it. But what I did, I simplified the whole thing. I put it in a very simple framework. Before I became active, people were a bit confused, and there were multiple theories about Netaji's death. People did not know what to talk about, this and that. So for example, there were theories like Netaji was killed at Bradford. There was one American journalist, top level Pulitzer award winning journalist, said that he came up with a theory that Subhash Chandra Bose was captured by the Americans and killed. That again, it's all nonsense. Any theory which is propounded, it has to have something by way of evidence, an eyewitness account, credible eyewitness account, or contemporary documentary of it. Something, there has to be something to go by. I just cannot, one fine morning, imagine something and say this is the theory. No, that can't be. Something has to be there even to start a hypothesis. Because of the efforts made by me and others, huge, a lot of information became available has become available recent times. So we have a lot of documents, coming from America, UK, India, Australia. Uh, People have become more vocal. Earlier they were afraid, so people talk more freely. So you have access to more information than people had, let's say, in 80s, 90s, or even earlier. So things became so much clear, to the extent that I was able to outline in my book that whatever happened to Netaji, there are just three theories: so the plane crash theory, and the Russian angle, and then you have the Faizabad angle, that is the Gumnami Baba, the Ayodhya angle. And of course, I conclude, and I wrote in my book, in India's Biggest Corrupt, that I am putting my money on the Faizabad angle, but you need not believe me. Then I wrote a chapter how to crack this case, how to settle it. This was a mystery. So, like you have a mystery of, let's say, in Delhi, Arushi Talwar, there's a murder mystery, whatever it is. You need to crack it. So, my job of my friend was not just to talk about the case, but to see how it can be resolved. It's a problem which needs to be resolved. I wrote a chapter about how to crack this case. What can we do now? And there I drew a blueprint, so to speak. I gave a lot of reference to what was happening in Western countries, because that is kind of works with people here in our country. Unfortunately, I talked about John F. Kennedy case, and how there was conspiracy theory that whatever happened in Dallas, there were different theories. Probably CIA was doing it, whatever. I But then then I come to I explain how there was a movie made by Oliver Stone on a conspiracy theory. and which led to the enactment of JFK Records Act in America, and whereby they released all the files. I said we need to follow that model. We have to, and by this time we had been able to collect a lot of data that the PMO is holding these many files, the MHA has this much of data. So this was presented in the book that you must take these steps. One of them is declassification. You must release all secret files, especially those from the intelligence organizations. And I come to Calcutta. I come to Calcutta. I meet members of Netaji's family. We had a long discussion. I tell them, look, you got to do something about it. Calcutta is the best place to do it. They tell me, no, why Calcutta? This is an India issue. I said, look, this is an all India issue, but please understand, Saurav Ganguly plays for the Indian team, but he is Royal Bengal Tiger because he belongs to a city.
Exactly.
So there's always a bet, and we have more chances. You people are here, the entire family, not so many members are here. Media probably media probably will be more receptive if we do something here. And then it is also very important because by this time there was a perception, even I thought as much, that there was a perception that Netaji's family supported the view that Subhash has died in a plane crash in Taiwan. Whereas the reality was, not one of Netaji's siblings believed that he died in any plane crash. His wife never believed that he died in any plane crash. None of his nephew, nieces believed that he died in any plane crash. There was only probably one nephew of Subhash Bose's, maybe one or two, who had joined Congress party. He was the one who was trotting out all these able to fit this kind of story in media. And so that was causing problem. I said, look, all of you, 97, 98, 99% of all of you don't believe, because by this time Netaji's siblings were dead. I think his last sister to his brother died in early 1999. Shailesh Bose. He was a look-alike of Netaji. And Shailesh's son was the famous Bombay drawing model, Ardhendu Bose. So his father was, so Shailesh was Netaji's youngest brother. He died, I think, in 1980, 84, he passed away. So by this time, everybody but Netaji's nephew and nieces were there. Chitra Ghosh died last month, but Chitra madam was alive. Roma, Netaji's niece, was alive. She was. So they were all there. We all spoke. Sheila madam was there, which is who's Amit Mitra's aunt. Amit Mitra is the finance minister of Bengal. So, and others, of course. So we have then grand nieces and grand nephews who had never seen Netaji, but of course they are part of the family. But at least 4 or 5 nephew and nieces were alive when I became active. And we decided, yes, we will do some programs. We'll start, just as in Delhi, you have, every time something important happened, people take out candle marches. Justice for Jessica, justice for Arushi. Why not for Subhash Bose? So first, really, seeking declassification of Netaji files happened in Calcutta. I was the organizer. It was in 2013 January. And then we started calling press conferences. We would present our facts to people here, and this started building, the momentum for this entire issue. This is declassification. So this was the joint work of Mission Netaji and Subhash Bose's family members. And then came a big turning point, which happened in the year 2015. But the foundation was laid way back in 2006 when me and my friends who came together using Yahoo chat room, we formed a group called Mission Netaji. Chandrachud Ghosh, when he was then in London, he came up with this idea of, let's use the Right to Information Act and seek information from government. I rejected it. I said, look, this is not possible because government is not going to give you any records. These are classified records. Right to information is essentially for getting small time information about some small fry here and there. They are not going to give you any classified information. Then it struck me, look, that's a good news actually. Nandiji, you would agree with me that if government doesn't give you information, that's a better news. Negative news is even better news. I said, this is going to create news. It's going to bring Netaji on front pages. Exactly same thing happened. We would file the RTA request. Government would deny us information, citing national security, etc., and we would, get coverage in media. This is how the whole thing, started building up from 2006 onward. The first case that we did was this actually, turned whole thing around, and the result was felt only in 2015. It took us some time. We asked for certain documents which were not given to us. So according to the RTI regime, if you are not satisfied with the government's answers, you can always go and complain to the Central Information Commission. Now the Information Commission, again, and all the people who are the appointees were the appointee of the Congress government. This is all happened in 2006 and 2014, in between that period. Wajat Habibullah ji was the Chief Information Commissioner, and there was Professor N. Tiwari, he was Chief Secretary of Odisha. He was then, of course, I think, Telecom Secretary earlier. Prabha Jagannathan was Information Secretary. Professor Ansari was there. Dr. O.P. Kejriwal was a commissioner. He was a former editor of Gandhi Collected Works, former director of the Nehru Memorial Library. Eminent people, but you can say they were appointed by the Congress government. So we had an extraordinary hearing before the commission, and and because the case was very important, and there were some problems from the government side, they were not willing to talk about it. So the commission had to call an extraordinary hearing. No, this is a matter of record. Everything I'm telling you more or less is a matter of record. That's all there available. That's why nobody can raise finger. But whatever I say, people can if they say we don't believe. That's a different matter. But you cannot raise finger. Everything is a matter of record. Now, before commission, it was a quasi judicial thing because you have commissioners sitting, five of them, and we are here, and the people from the Home Ministry on the other side. They came up and they said, we are holding the Home Ministry something like 70,000 pages concerning Subhash Bose's death, of which some papers are so sensitive that if disclosed, quote, it may lead to law and order problem across the country, especially in West Bengal.
Oh,
And this is the point on which we have, huge. Yeah. So in which on this point we had discussion, and eventually the commission favored us. I said no, you have to give them, because by this time we had been. I mean, it's a long story. I'm just giving you this basic point. So that no, this is not done. You have to release information, and we had specified 202 documents. We said no, release these documents to them. And also, these 70,000 pages that you're talking about, the Ministry of Home Affairs, which is a nodal ministry in Subhash Bose case, you must release these documents, send them to National Archive. So thereafter, there's a story in Hindustan Times, by the way. If I'm not wrong, some Mr. Tikku wrote it. And the story said that there was a cabinet committee on political affairs, CCPA, took a call on it. There was a discussion, and they decided to release some papers. So out of 202 documents listed by us, they released 91, which
okay.
included some of documents from the Intelligence Bureau and so on and so forth, from PMO, MH, etc. But they did not give us some of the most sensitive ones. For example, the Director of Military Intelligence's report about Mahatma Gandhi's statement that Subhash was alive, so on and so forth. They did not give us those reports. But some of them were released, and they were good stuff. And out of the 70,000 pages which the commission had directed government to release to the National Archive, they released something like 17,000 pages were released, and they were in 2010 they were released by Government of India, Manmohan Singh's time. By 2012 they were in National Archive, and National Archive again has a they take time. They would make a catalog out of it. They would scrutinize the paper. They would put them in places. It takes time. This has to be they have to be put in an inventory. It was only by 2014 in there these papers became available for public to see. Obviously, I am the only mad person, me and Chandrachur, who were aware of what was happening. So it's a long story. I'm just giving you the very basic point. We really have to struggle very hard. Chandrachur had to file more cases, haggle with the people, so on and so forth. So as a result of this, several thousand pages, nearly 1,000 files were released by Manmohan Singh government without much fanfare, and they were sent to National Archive. 2014, I go to National Archive and I start checking the files. And if like it happens, it has happened even in America, that when you engage in large scale declassification of sensitive material, by mistake you sometimes end up releasing which you should not have. So here, by mistake, photocopies of two files were there, which are not an original, but they were photocopies. Original, I believe, was still classified. God knows where they are, but photocopies of two files came from the Home Ministry, which came to my my notice. And I turned pages. They were from the director's office of the intelligence, Bengal state. So the file showed that at the behest of the Central Intelligence Bureau, after independence, up to maybe 70, 71, people linked to Netaji and his family members were put under surveillance by the government.
Okay.
And I called Chandrachur Ghosh. I still remember. Of course, we were just not talking about it. I said, Chandrachur, this is Watergate scandal. Now, many people, whenever I make my presentation, I tell people about Watergate, because many people have forgotten what is Watergate scandal. It's the most notorious case, in the history of political, politics. I would say, if I can paraphrase Donald Trump, most notorious case in politics. Richard Nixon, Tricky Dick. It so happened as I mean, let me just recall in case we have forgotten what was Watergate scandal, to make you understand how serious a thing this is. Because please understand the problem with me. I am able to convey all this thing to you because we have, thanks to this, internet, whatever. I can talk
Gotcha.
at length and explain to you bit by bit. Otherwise, if you go on channel, you have to say everything in half an hour, and you get 2 bytes. You can only shout. You cannot explain, and nobody has time to listen to these things. So now we are very happy. Social media is enabling people like me to explain our stand in detail. in what happened Watergate? Watergate is a complex of building in Washington D.C. So it's got offices, it's got a hotel, and there was also the office of Democratic Party, which was party in opposition. So there was an attempt of some burglars came in at night, and these burglars were caught. Burglars were then, of course, produced in court next day. When the judge saw them, they did not appear to be burglars. He asked them, "Who are you people? What do you do otherwise? What?" He said, "We are retired from government. Retired from government. Where government you were?" And so they, in a muted tone, they said they're working for the CIA. I think three of them said they were CIA. CIA? Why? What would be former CIA people doing? Trying to steal something in Democratic Party office in middle of night. Then it, of course, you must have seen that very famous movie of Robert Redford, All the President's Men, and they were like, basically they had gone there to put eavesdropping devices, to they were bugging, devices.
Mm.
So it was an attempt at snooping on opposition political party. It was a botched up case. When I was in America, I was telling people, you people are such fools. If you had sent these people for advanced training to New Delhi and Calcutta, you would have never botched it up because we are masters in this game. We don't get caught like you. And I keep saying, compared to your Richard Nixon, I mean, compared to Chacha Nehru, Nixon was a novice. He couldn't do such a simple thing as putting a bugging device. It's done like this. I can give you example if you want me to. I'll tell you. And we have bugged two British prime ministers, by the way, in our country. The
Okay.
last one was Tony Blair. And so this, of course, the whole thing broke, and it turns out the American president was aware of it. And you know what happened to Richard Nixon? That's all the Watergate scandal is about. A botched up attempt at snooping at opposition party, which is a child's play here in our country. People trained by the British and master of skullduggery, who are responsible. Now these folks in India, right from 1946, not only were spying each and every person linked to Subhash Bose. It's not just his family. Some journalist trying to write a biography of Subhash Bose in Gujarat, अंदर स्नूपिंग बच्चा को नहीं छोड़ा इन लोगों ने छोटे छोटे बच्चों की स्नूपिंग करी है डॉक्यूमेंट दिखा के बात करते हैं नौवीं के बच्चे वो नौवीं के बच्चे का एग्जांपल मैंने दिया आई चैलेंज पीपल इन अमेरिका गिव मी सिमिलर एग्जांपल फ्रॉम वाटरगेट आई विल चेंज माय नेम नौवीं के बच्चों को इन्होंने नहीं छोड़ा इन लोगों ने
That's shocking.
पता नहीं इनका आधा बजट इन लोगों का आईबी का मेरे ख्याल से सुभाष बोस की जासूसी करने में लगा हुआ है इतना जबरदस्त पूरे फॉरनर्स को इन लोगों ने नहीं छोड़ा फॉरनर्स आल्सो टैप एवरीबॉडी वाज टैप and this was a file which probably came out by mistake the real gold is lying somewhere else and then the entire media because I wrote story about it then it became India Today cover story
Yeah.
entire media the BJP everybody Netaji's family drew the same conclusion obviously RN Kao is not interested in what Subhash Bose's nephew is doing he doesn't care Mr. Kao has hundreds of things to do MML Huja is not interested in Subhash Bose's family. BN Malik is not concerned about Subhash. They were actually tracking the real man with the hope that if he's alive, he would try to contact his family. He would try to contact somebody who was in the INA, somebody who was a freedom fighter. So everybody was under, all over the country. So this was not happening in Calcutta. It was happening in Chennai. We got, proofs. It was happening in Mumbai and in other places. So this, and then, there's another bombshell. And as luck would have it, same time when it happened, there was a file release in London. योर आर्काइव्स क्यू में आपका जो नेशनल आर्काइव है वो भी मेरे हाथ चढ़ गई फाइल उठ करके आप लोगों को पता होगा आप यहाँ पे हम लोग जब बचपन में हम लोग छोटे थे तो एक कंस्पिरेसी थ्योरी बहुत घुमा करती थी यहाँ पे और कंस्पिरेसी थ्योरी ये थी कि जो आपका ट्रांसफर ऑफ पावर हुआ था आपका 1947 में वी विल रिवर्ट टू इट लेटर ऑन ट्रांसफर ऑफ पावर हुआ आपका जिसको इंडिपेंडेंस एक्ट के पास उन्होंने ब्रिटिश ट्रांसफर द पावर टू दोज हु यूज्ड टू सेंड देम ग्रीटिंग कार्ड्स ऑन क्रिसमस ईव एंड न्यू ईयर सो जो ट्रांसफर ऑफ पावर हुआ है उसमें बहुत सी सीक्रेट क्लॉजेस हैं दिस वाज एन एलिगेशन वी यूज्ड टू बी मेड बाय लॉट ऑफ पीपल in fact one former bodyguard of Subhash Bose he made an allegation before commission of inquiry that there was an understanding that Subhash Bose will be handed over to the British and charged with war crimes if he returns to India. Something like that. So we had this conspiracy theory about that there were some secret clauses concerning transfer of power, and one of them was this. I do not know about the other clause, but what happened that in 2015, as luck would have it, when the snooping angle broke here, we came across files in England which proved the British admitted, the MI5 admitted that yes, there were secret clauses to the transfer of power. अब पता लगा कि भैया अगर ये सीक्रेट क्लॉजेस थी ये जो अहिंसा के पुजारी यहाँ बैठे हैं, सत्य अहिंसा का जिन्होंने ढंढोरा पीटता है दुनिया में कि हम लोगों ने ठेका लिया हुआ है दुनिया में सत्य अहिंसा को फैलाने वाला, तुमने तो कभी बताया नहीं भैया कि सीक्रेट क्लॉज थी वहां पे। आपने तो किसी पार्लियामेंट में कहा नहीं, मैं तो पंडित जी के सब लेक्चर पढ़ के देख लिए, मैंने सबके पढ़ के देख लिए। आपने ये क्यों नहीं बताया कि आप लोगों ने वहां पे ये आपके सीक्रेट क्लॉज थी? One part of the secret clause was this, and Christopher Andrews has written about it, who wrote the official, history of MI5. And now you can go to the MI5 official website. It is very much there. That portion from Christopher Andrews, official history of MI5. There was a secret clause and in the transfer power, and one of which, of course, entailed that British set up office of security SLO office in Delhi after India became free, supposedly security liaison officer. And what the SLO, did, what he was there for, the Indian director IB would go and report to him and pass on information to him about India. And they were, so then, of course, they were sending information, intelligence about Subhash Chandra Bose to the British after independence. मतलब भारत में महात्मा गांधी का और के आदर्शों का भारत बन गया है, हर जगह अहिंसा का बोलबाला हो गया, सच्चे अहिंसा का, लेकिन इन्फॉर्मेशन अपन पास करो अपने मत। दिस इज ऑन रिकॉर्ड, दिस वाज ऑन टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया फ्रंट पेज, इट वाज ऑन इंडिया टुडे, प्लीज गूगल सर्च एवरीवेयर, नोबडी डेयर कॉन्टेस्ट इट, अभी भी कॉन्टेस्ट नहीं करता। अगर कोई बीजेपी का स्पिन डॉक्टर कॉन्टेस्ट करेगा तो उसको बुलाइए, मैं उसको यहाँ रगड़ दूंगा। वहां चैनल में तो ये लोग भाग जाते हैं एक बाइट दे करके, पर यहाँ बचने का मौका नहीं है उनका। ये अब जमाना आ गया, भगवान भला करे कि आपके जितनी ये जो ये इंटरनेट इनके गांधी भक्तों के हाथ में नहीं है, तो ये भी बंद करवा देंगे लोग। तो अब खुल के बात हो रही है, तो उसमें निकल, तो ये सारा निकल के आया कि ये लोग जासूसी करके वहां पे इंफॉर्मेशन को फॉरवर्ड कर रहे थे। सारे देश में बवाल मचा, सारे, चाहे इंडिया टुडे हो, चाहे एक्सप्रेस हो, नेताजी की फैमिली हो, चाहे बीजेपी हो, सबने कहा दैट प्रूव्स कि दीज पीपल वर, द मैन वुड बी अलाइव। And that all of a sudden, Netaji began in 2015 became a rage. With stories everywhere. If it wasn't for the Nepal earthquake, ये इनका बैंड बच गया था। Obviously, the reaction of the BJP was कि इन्होंने मुंह बंद कर लिया, चुप हो गए बिल्कुल, जो गवर्नमेंट पावर बैठी हुई है। और मैं अभी भी जाके लोगों को बोलता हूँ, मैं नागपुर में गया, मैंने वहां लेक्चर देके बोला कि अगर अगर ये खबर निकल के आती है, भगवान ना करे, कि बीजेपी वालों ने अंग्रेज गवर्नमेंट के साथ में इन्फॉर्मेशन शेयर किया, तो कांग्रेस ही तुम्हें घर से निकाल के मारते। और तुम्हारी आंखों में ऐसा पर्दा पड़ गया है गांधी भक्ति का कि तुम्हारे को नजर नहीं आ रहा कि हो क्या रहा, कुछ नहीं किया, चूं करके बैठे। एक बीजेपी का बंदा, बड़ा सीनियर लीडर ने आज तक मुंह नहीं खोला है कि ये जब तुम्हारे रंगे हाथों पकड़े गए कांग्रेसी, तुमने क्यों नहीं उसका बात का भंडा फोड़ किया, वट एवर मोदी जी। हाँ, तो दिस इज हाउ द होल थिंग ब्लू अप बिग टाइम। देयर वाज अ कंट्रोवर्सी and members of Netaji's family who were earlier Jyoti Basu fan club and etc., they suddenly became national rage. They were on television everywhere and so on and so forth. This is what caused the explosion in 2015, and I was at least for 15 days on all the channels and so on and so forth, and after 15 years of hard work I got some recognition. उससे पहले कहते पागल है, पता नहीं क्या क्या बातें करते रहते, किसी को इसमें इंटरेस्ट नहीं है। लेकिन 15 के बाद से सिचुएशन चेंज हुई। उससे पहले कई लेक्चर के लोग नहीं बुलाते थे, लेकिन उसके बाद में फिर हम इंग्लैंड भी गए, अमेरिका भी गए, 15-16 स्टेट कवर कर लिए अमेरिका में जाकर के, आईआईटीज में लेक्चर दिया, हर जगह दिया। तो वो बहुत बड़ा चेंज 15 में आया, and that is due to the efforts made by my friends and I, Mission Netaji, Right to Information, हम लोग यहाँ पर लेकर आए। And then in 2015, हाँ जी, सॉरी यार, बहुत लंबा,
No,
चला
sir, go
लंबा कह
ahead.
दिया, लेकिन
You have actually taken us back into the past, and I think it is really worrying and also annoying. In some ways, it feels like, would Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose have challenged Nehru for the post of Prime Minister, which led to all this? And if Gumnami Baba was really
I'll come to that later on. I mean, Netaji was not a
please go
challenger to
ahead. Yeah,
Nehru. He was a Netaji was not a challenger to Nehru. He was a challenger to Mahatma Gandhi, and Mahatma Gandhi was guru of Nehru. Just like this, it's not. Let's not. Netaji was like equal to Mahatma Gandhi and above. Chacha ji was not even the picture in that sense. So the 2015, the same time when this happened. By this time, as I told you, we were, we had approached Subhash Bose's family members, and I had conveyed to them, look, this case won't be touched by anybody who is coexisting with Congress party. So, and unfortunately, there are many leaders in the BJP who are coexisting with BJP, with the Congress party. So, we के लोधी गार्डन में इकट्ठे सैर सूर करते हैं, चाय पानी पीते हैं, मैंने वो हाथ नहीं लगाएंगे. And I told them in 2013 that 12, sorry, when we met, the only man who can do it is Narendra Modi, Gujarat Chief Minister. And I knew by that time, of course, I had spoken to a former Chief Secretary of Gujarat that Modi ji, for whatever he says public or whatever, उनको स्वामी विवेकानंद में सुभाष बोस में पर्सनल लेवल पे इंटरेस्ट है. When I told family members कि you should talk to him, they just bolted. नरेंद्र मोदी, वो तो आपको पसंद नहीं है. तो उनको कन्विंस किया है तुम जरा रियलिस्टिक हो जाओ, ऐसे नहीं होता, और ही इज अ सुपरस्टार एंड इन फ्यूचर इज वेरी ब्राइट. And we all knew by that time that Modi ji, the way he was, gaining popularity, it will be a matter of time he would be prime minister. So again, you can always Google search. When I'm saying whether I'm telling you thanks to Google, you can always verify it. There are news reports. Unfortunately, nobody in media does these days. They don't check background and before this. Just call anybody. Whoever can speak well is welcome, and he can say whatever he or she likes. वो दो उसके बाद में जब फैमिली ने फिर एक चिट्ठी लिखी नरेंद्र मोदी को. ना थिंक अबाउट इट, द बोस फैमिली इज राइटिंग अ चिट्ठी, 20 odd members who were forced to sign a letter which was drafted by me and Chandrachud Ghosh, and it was written to Mr. Modi. And in 2013, then Modi ji came to Calcutta. He was still, of course, the chief minister of Gujarat. He was approached by Subhash Bose's family, and the letter was given to him that you must raise your voice in the favor of declassification. Modi said he would do something. So the matter of Netaji's issue concerning Netaji were flagged to Narendra Modi ji when he was the chief minister of Gujarat. Now, आजकल लोग बहुत थ्योरियां फ्लोट कर रहे हैं कि साहब पॉलिटिकल, नहीं नहीं, वो पहले से ही हो गया. And Modi ji was talking about Netaji more when he was the chief minister of Gujarat. And now अब तो काम बोलना बंद कर दिया एक दो ओकेजन को छोड़ करके. तो वो उसके बाद में फिर जैसे ये बवाल मचा स्नूपिंग को लेकर के, यहाँ दीदी ने अपनी इंटेलिजेंस की फाइल पब्लिक कर दी थोड़ी सी, उससे वो ऐड हो गया, उसमें और डाटा निकल के आ रहा है, बहुत स्पाइंग हुई थी बड़े लेवल पे. तो उसके बाद में 2015 के एंड में प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने हमको बुलाया, नेताजी फैमिली के लोगों को, हमको उनके घर में. एक बड़ी मजेदार आपको सुनाता हूँ कहानी उसके अंदर, एनेक्डोटल इन्फॉर्मेशन, कि अब हम जब नेताजी की फैमिली के लोग, मतलब ये लोग जो उनके ग्रैंड नेफ्यू टाइप कैटेगरी में आते हैं, हम इकट्ठे प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस करते थे कैलकाटा क्लब में की, और क्या यूजली कैलकाटा क्लब में. तो ये बोलते, तभी बोलते हैं टीवी कि नेताजी बिलोंग टू द कंट्री. ठीक है जी. जिस दिन प्रधानमंत्री के ऑफिस से फोन आया तो बोला कि सिर्फ फैमिली जाएगी मिलने के लिए. तो हमने हैगलिंग करी, बेटा ऐसे नहीं होगा, हमने भी साथ लड़े थे, ये आप सिर्फ अब ये फोटो खिंचवाने के बारे में आप लोग सामने. तो पता नहीं कहां कहां से नेताजी की फैमिली के रिलेटिव, कभी जिंदगी में डी क्लासिफिकेशन का डी नहीं देखा, कभी हमारे प्रोग्राम में नहीं आया, वो सारे के सारे फोटो खिंचवाने के लिए मोदी जी के पास पहुंच गया. और वो लोग, जब इनको मैंने कहा था कि इस आदमी के पास जाओ, और वो मना कर रहे थे नहीं जाएंगे, जिस दिन हम लोग मोदी जी से मिलने गए, इन्होंने मुझसे बात तक उन्होंने करने दी, फोटो खिंचाने, सेल्फी खिंचवा रहे हैं बैठ के उसके साथ ही. तो ये इनका इनका करेक्टर है इन लोगों का वहां पर जाकर के. एनी हो, सो ये हुआ. वो मोदी जी ने बोला कि मैं फाइलें पब्लिक कर दूंगा. उनको हमने बोला कि आपको मुझे उन्होंने बोलने नहीं दिया, तो ज्यादा बातचीत उस टाइम पे नहीं हो पाई, बाद में थोड़ी सी, लेकिन वो अलग कहानी है. तो उनको बोला कि आप ये, और नॉट ओनली यू शुड रिलीज फाइल्स, यू शुड ऑल्सो टॉक टू मिस्टर पुतिन अबाउट इट, बिकॉज ये कोई रिसर्च का इशू नहीं है. नेताजी वॉज इन रशिया, यू टॉक टू रशियन, दे मस्ट बी हैविंग रिकॉर्ड इन द इंटेलिजेंस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, सो ऑन सो फोर्थ. केजीबी के पास तो हर एक आदमी की फाइल होती है. तो मोदी जी ने मेरे सामने बोला कि हम पुतिन से बात करेंगे, दिसंबर में मैं उनसे मिल रहा हूँ. दिस इज 2015 कि मैं दिसंबर में उनसे मिल रहा हूँ, तो मैं उनसे बात करूंगा. मुझे नहीं मालूम क्या हुआ, लेकिन अभी तक कोई पब्लिक इन्फॉर्मेशन नहीं है. तो उसके बाद में उन्होंने एक एक करके फाइल रिलीज करनी शुरू करी. तो इन्होंने 306 फाइल पब्लिक की है. तो अभी मैं करंट स्टेटस बुला के छोड़ देता हूँ, बिकॉज लंबी चौड़ी कहानी हो गई है. वो ये था कि इन्होंने 305 के आसपास फाइल रिलीज करी हैं, जो पीएमओ से हैं, एमएचए से हैं और एमईए से हैं. एक भी फाइल इंटेलिजेंस की पब्लिक नहीं करी है. और ऑब्वियसली दैट इज वाई इन फाइलों में देख करके आपको ये नहीं मालूम चल रहा कि स्नूपिंग क्यों हो रही थी. So, and this is where we stand, and what is very much worrying, which I have been flagging everywhere. I flagged in the Arnab show also, and earlier did in other channels, which is very, very, troublesome. That in Parliament they're telling lies that we have declassified all the files. No, you have not. I mean, unless IB is still reporting to London, you have many more files. So please, don't say that. I mean, if I were a member of Parliament, I would move a privilege motion against them. You cannot tell a lie on the floor of the House. So this is where we stand today. This is how the whole idea of snooping, this made a big issue. The Netaji's family was on the television. The government did respond, but they have not done what was expected of them. So this is where the case innocently stand today.
Right, Anuj, and I think when you rightly said that there is a lot more that needs to come out. So I think we have raised a generation of kids who know a lot more about Gandhi and Nehru, but know very little about Subhash Chandra Bose. That is what is worrying. That how do we now? We celebrated 125th birth anniversary. Okay, Modi ji went to Kolkata. We've got a stamp now, a commemorative coin now. But there is so much that is not out there about Subhash Chandra Bose. And I think it just brings us back to this question that the amount of research, like you've said, you've done, the amount of documents you've done, hats off to you for doing that. But where when will we know the real thing about Netaji? Do you think that's something that will happen sooner than later after waiting for so many years? What happened on 18th August 1945? Where did he go? If Gumnami Baba was really Subhash Chandra Bose, why did he not come out and meet his family? Why did he suffer so much in such misery and poverty? Just take us through a bit on that, Anuj, if you can.
Okay. Actually, you have posed three, four questions. I mean,
Yeah,
let me just
go,
respond
go,
to one.
go,
When
whichever
will be
format. It's very
when will
interesting,
we
yeah.
know a why we have been taught so much about Gandhiji, etc. From day one. As I was telling you that India became free because of the revolt, near revolt. There were of course naval mutiny, and because of the armed forces began turning against them. But we have military intelligence files are there. You have testimonies of so many people. Clement Attlee said it more than once.
Mhm.
Uh, General Sinha was, was part of DGMO. He said it. Baba Sahib Ambedkar said it. Many people. I mean, this is no something which can be nobody can challenge it now. Ajit Doval said it, of course, when he was, not NSA. So there are many things which are very well known. See what happened that the people who reaped the harvest of Subhash Chandra Bose's struggle, when they came to power, they had to have their own narrative. Why were they in power? Why were because सबसे मशहूर जो नारा था उस जमाने में 1946 में, लाल किले से आई आवाज, सैगल ढिल्लन छान आवाज, इंकलाब जिंदाबाद, ये कांग्रेस ही लगाते थे नारा उस टाइम पे.
Yeah.
और विद इन 1 ईयर दीज टू रेस स्लोगन की माउंट बैटन की जय हो, माउंट बैटन की जय हो. जब गद्दी मिल गई तो माउंट बैटन जिंदाबाद, पहले सुभाष बोस का नाम लेते थे ये लोग. तो ये जब आए पावर में तो उनको अपना नैरेटिव फिट करना था. तो वो ये तो बोल सकते नहीं भैया कि सुभाष बोस के चक्कर में हम लोग ये हैं. वो रिकॉर्ड में सब कुछ है. उस जमाने की इंटेलिजेंस फाइल आप देखेंगे, जो स्निपेट्स आ रहे हैं या जो ट्रांसफर ऑफ पावर के डॉक्यूमेंट जो इंग्लैंड में रिलीज हुए 70s में, इट्स वेरी क्लियर, दे सेइंग वेरी क्लियरली. फॉर एग्जांपल, गांधी वाज टोटली अगेंस्ट दिस थिंग. कांग्रेस पार्टी डिड नॉट लाइक सुभाष बोस, दे हैड थ्रोन हिम आउट. एक्चुअली उनका कोई इंटरेस्ट था नहीं, लेकिन वो प्रॉब्लम है कि आईएनए रेड फोर्ट ट्रायल जस्ट स्टार्ट हुई. देवर वॉर क्राइम्स ट्रायल बाय द वे. यू हैव वॉर क्राइम्स ट्रायल इन न्यूरमबर्ग, यू हैड वॉर क्राइम्स ट्रायल इन टोक्यो, यू एक्चुअली हैड वॉर क्राइम्स ट्रायल इन दिल्ली. बट यहाँ पे वो बैकफायर कर गया, क्योंकि हम लोग वॉर क्रिमिनल्स नहीं थे, हम लोग तो फ्रीडम फाइटर थे. तो ये लोग को पता लगा कि साहब, देन आसफ अली, देयर वाज वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग रिपोर्ट फ्रॉम मिलिट्री इंटेलिजेंस इनटू सेक्रेटरी ऑफ स्टेट इन लंदन, that Congress, Asif Ali, was deputed to find out what was the mood of the country, and he told a mole of military intelligence, who later on became a major general in Free India, Badwar, Major General H.C. Barwar, that mole of the British intelligence. In MI, he was an Indian military, but he became a general in Free India. तो उस मोल ने इंफॉर्मेशन दिया कि आजफ अली सारे भारत में देखकर आया कि आईएनए बहुत पॉपुलरिटी है, बहुत जबरदस्त. तो साफ उनकी फाइलों में सब जगह लिखा है कि इलेक्शन होने वाले थे 45 के एंड में, दिसंबर में, अर्ली जनवरी 46 में, जिसमें मतलब उस इलेक्शन को जीतने के चक्कर में कांग्रेसियों ने सपोर्ट किया. जो कहानी ये फ्लोट करते हैं ना कि चाचा नेहरू वहां लड़ने गए थे, उनके फेवर में क्या नाम है, नेताजी के सोल्जर्स के, वो इलेक्शन का वो ठीक रहा था. वो नॉट बिकॉज ऑफ लव फॉर नेताजी. इलेक्शन आ रहे थे, उनको उससे बढ़िया मौका नहीं मिला. इन लोगों का सुपड़ा साफ हो गया था 42 के जो इनका क्विट इंडिया मूवमेंट चला था, जो पहले लॉन्च करने को राजी नहीं हो रहे थे. दे वर मेकिंग प्रो ब्रिटिश स्टेटमेंट्स, ऑल ऑफ देम. वी डोंट वांट टू एक्सप्लॉइट द प्रॉब्लम्स इंडियन साइड. उसके बाद में फिर इनका इन्होंने चलाया, एक वीक में खत्म हो गया, सब लोग जेल में जाके बैठ गए. उसके बाद में इन्होंने डिसोन कर दिया उसको. पीपल आर नॉट अवेयर द डिसोन एक्चुअली. और इफ आई आपका सितंबर 45 में कांग्रेस पार्टी का जो वर्किंग कमेटी का रेजोल्यूशन था, जो सरदार पटेल ने ड्राफ्ट किया था, opening line, the end of the war has brought about no change in British attitude towards Indian freedom. सितंबर 45 का तो कोई ब्रिटिश का एटीट्यूड चेंज था नहीं. तो भैया 2 महीने के बाद में क्या उनका दिमाग ठनक गया, नवंबर 45 में आपके रेड फोर्ट ट्रायल स्टार्ट हुए थे. दैट्स हाउ थिंग्स स्टार्ट टू चेंज रैपिडली. एंड विद इन 6 3 months उन्होंने डिसाइड किया कि छोड़ के भागो यहाँ से. तो वो जब ये पावर में ये लोग आए, और ये सारी लड़ाई घूम फिर के, मतलब ये सम एंड सब्सटेंस ऑफ इज बेसिकली वॉर ऑफ नैरेटिव, एंड दैट इज व्हाट इज कॉजिंग व्हाई द इशू इज नॉट कमिंग आउट टुडे, व्हाई द करंट गवर्नमेंट इज नॉट रिलीजिंग इन्फॉर्मेशन. इट्स वॉर ऑफ नैरेटिव्स. और उसमें ये हुआ कि वो नैरेटिव उनको अपना चेपना था, और वो नैरेटिव उन्होंने चेपा कि एक भारत वो दे दी हमें आजादी बिना खड़क बिना ढाल, कि ऐसी कोई चमत्कारी चीज हमारे देश में हमारी पावर आई है कि आप धरना दोगे और अंग्रेज भाग जाएगा यहाँ से. मैं आपको 5-7 रिकॉर्ड दे सकता हूँ कि एक वो आयरन शर्मिला थी, आयरन शर्मिला, वो 22 साल तक धरने बैठी है मणिपुर, मिजोरम, वहां पे किसी नॉर्थ ईस्ट में. गवर्नमेंट ने एक्ट तो चेंज किया नहीं उसके बाद में, कि हमारे किसान भाई भी बैठे हुए धरने पे, आप बैठ जाओ 50 साल तक. आपको लगता है कि धरना धरना प्रदर्शन करने से गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया के एक्ट वापिस होते हैं क्या? ये सरकार गांधीवादियों की है. आप गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया के एक्ट चेंज नहीं करा सकते, और आप मुझे ये थ्योरी अपलोड कर रहे हो कि साहब आपने धरना दिया और आप ब्रिटिश एम्पायर विड्रॉ करके यहाँ से। इतना आसान नहीं है। ऐसे ऐसे यहाँ तो दिल्ली में तो किराएदार नहीं निकलता घर से हिंसा से, आप क्या बात कर रहे हो? ये सब बचकानी बातें हैं। ये एक थ्योरी फ्लोट की गई थी। इसके ट्विन प्रिंसिपल, इसके ट्विन इसके इसके बेसिस थे, इसके ट्विन रीजन थे, इसके जो वो थे। प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड कि जो जितने राय बहादुर टाइप लोग थे जिन्होंने हु वर कोलैबोरेटर्स ऑफ द ब्रिटिश राज, उनमें से एक, उन सबको गोली मारनी चाहिए थी 47 में। they were all continued in the they were the same people who became home secretary, foreign secretary, whatever। वही उन्हीं के बच्चे बैठ के वहां पे हमको लेक्चर दे रहे हैं फॉर नेशनल सिक्योरिटी के बारे में। और ये वही लोग थे जो अंग्रेजों के पैर चाटा करते थे। सुभाष बोस की लैंग्वेज है कि कांग्रेस वर्किंग कमेटी के लोग जाके इनके पैर चाटते हैं अंग्रेजों के। तो ये वही लोग थे। और ये आने के बाद में इनको एज इट इज उन्होंने एग्जैक्टली वो ब्राउन साहिब, आपके पहले अंग्रेज घूमते थे आपके जिमखाना क्लब में, उसके बाद में वो मंकी घुस गया, एप बन गया, उसमें घुस गया, ही इज एपिंग द मैनर्स ऑफ हिज मास्टर एंड ही बिकेम द साहिब, ब्राउन साहिब बन गए हम लोग, वो चले गए। ये जो पूरा ये नैरेटिव इनको भी सूट करता था, इन लोगों को जो एलीट क्लास जिन्होंने कोलैबोरेट किया, जिनके दिल में उस जमाने में थी मेरा बच्चा विलायत में सेटल हो जाए, वहां चला जाए, करते करते। तो ये इन्होंने जो पूरा जो थ्योरी फ्लोट किया है, वो दे दी हमें आजादी बिना खड़क बिना ढाल। एक्चुअली उनको अंग्रेजों को ऑनरेबल एग्जिट दिया गया यहाँ से। वेरी फेमस स्टेटमेंट ऑफ महात्मा गांधी, द ब्रिटिश आर डूइंग अस अ फेवर बाय लीविंग दिस कंट्री। गांधी जी वांटेड अ यूनियन जैक ऑन द फ्लैग, नो पीपल आर नॉट अवेयर ऑफ इट बाय द वे। सो ये ऑनरेबल एग्जिट इनको देना था। और ये आपने इनको कि साहब ये हो जाए। अगर आप लोगों ने वो फिल्म देखी होगी एटनबरो की गांधी, जिसने दुनिया भर में धमाल मचाया, खासकर वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज में, पीपल आर नॉट अवेयर इट वाज अ गवर्नमेंट फंडेड, इट वाज फंडेड बाय अस बाय द वे।
Really?
उसका जो, हाँ गवर्नमेंट फंडेड थे, हमारा हमारा फंड, इट्स गवर्नमेंट फंडेड फंडेड फिल्म ऑब्वियसली,
Okay.
प्रॉपर काइंड ऑफ। हाँ, बेन किंग्सले की वो हमने फंड किया। प्रोजेक्ट आपका पंडित जी के टाइम से चल रहा था, लेकिन ये बाद में जाकर के एग्जीक्यूट हुआ है। और ये उसमें ये था, और उसमें जो लियाजन जो थे गवर्नमेंट उस जमाने के इंफॉर्मेशन सेक्रेटरी थे, वो थे, उन्हीं के लड़के हैं भुवन लाल, जो नेताजी के। तो वो तो फैमिली, मतलब वहां से भुवन लाल जी से पूछिए कि उनके पिताजी क्या बोलते हैं सुभाष बोस के बारे में। ही वाज अ लियाजन पर्सन बिटवीन Attenborough's unit and Bhuvan ji is of course has been in part of film, and he is a good friend of Ben Kingsley. Keep on posting on his Facebook about Ben Kingsley and George Lucas, etc. He knows all of them. So Bhuvan
But
ji is
why
part of the
did Gandhi
committee.
want Union Jack on the flag, Anuj?
Yeah, of course. It is there in the Gandhi. See, regarding Gandhi ji, please, one thing I must, I make a request to all. Please don't read books written by people like Ram Guha. These spin doctors. Read Gandhi collected works published by Government of India.
Okay,
Go there, just Google sites that you'll get it.
that's an eye
So
opener.
that is no, that is very well known. That's not an iPhone. It's a very common thing. I mean, don't get me started. It's a very, very common thing. This Union Jack thing. He was. See, problem between Subhash Bose and Gandhi was not just Ahimsa. Gandhi ji never wanted Puran Swaraj. It was young Turks like Panditji and Subhash. Panditji and Subhash were very good friends until 38 actually. So Subhash never went along well with Gandhiji, but Panditji and Subhash, Netaji and Panditji were very good friends. Their positions were the same. Panditji had a turnaround later on. That's why Subhash accused him of betraying him. But initially, if you see, 1929, you have a Congress big time meeting in Lahore, in which they decided that our aim would be Puran Swaraj. Gandhi ji was never in favor of Puran Swaraj. It was dominant status. Subhash was stuck. So, and they didn't want heavy industry in our country. So, Subhash set up this planning committee. It riled Mahatma Gandhi like big time. So, if you actually want to create India of Gandhiji's dream, which the government is trying, then you get rid of Google, Microsoft. Every industry will go. All go to Gaon and Khadi. ग्रामोद्योग बनाओ, ये दैट इज द गांधी जी ड्रीम, दैट्स व्हाट इट इज एक्चुअली, इफ दे आर रियली इंटरेस्टेड इन फॉलोइंग हिज ड्रीम। तो ये जब पूरा इन्होंने वो जो निकाला करके, ये जो गांधी फिल्म अगर आप देखेंगे तो इट विल गिव यू टू मैसेजेस। सी इट अगेन। A, Gandhiji was a super human being. No dispute. I'm not saying Gandhiji was not great. I'm not saying Gandhiji did not play a role. Gandhiji has his own place in history. Subhash plays him. So that is a different matter altogether. I'm only talking about who actually, impacted the British more. Of course, Subhash much more impact. Ahimsa had a role to play in 30s, but then it all squandered later on. Uh, uh, but it's but you see it from the movie Gandhi, it shows the British, colonial British in good light. वेरी नाइस पीपल, कितने अच्छे लोग थे, वहां से आए हैं, 200 साल राज किया। इंडिया वाज वन ऑफ द रिचेस्ट कंट्री इन द वर्ल्ड, वी बिकेम द पुअरेस्ट, ऑल काइंड ऑफ वॉर क्राइम्स एंड ऑल काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स हैपेंड। आपको लगता है कि ये जितनी आप खबरें पढ़ते हैं कि साहब सेकंड वर्ल्ड वॉर में उन्होंने जर्मन्स ने एक्सपेरिमेंट किए थे, उन्हें आपको लगता है इन लोगों ने नहीं किए थे क्या? रिपोर्टें नहीं बनाई इन लोगों ने, 2-4 बज गई हैं। जरा गूगल में डाल के देखिए रावलपिंडी एक्सपेरिमेंट्स, कि मस्टर्ड गैस का इन्होंने इस्तेमाल किया था इंडियंस को टेस्ट करने के लिए, और बड़े खुशी खुशी साहब ये हिंदुस्तानी आ गए जी, कर लो हमारे पे टेस्ट, आपके लिए तो जान हाजिर है। रिकॉर्ड नहीं बनाया गया जी, रिकॉर्ड होते तो इनके तब आपको लगता है कि इन लोगों ने वॉर क्राइम्स नहीं किए? आईएनए के लोगों को मारा इन लोगों ने। अभी भी रेड फोर्ट में सिलीमगढ़ किले में भूतों की आवाजें आती हैं रात को। इट वाज द डर्टी थिंग, इट हैपेंड रॉन्ग ऑल साइड। यू थिंक दे डिडंट किल पीपल, दे डिडंट यूज टॉर्चर्स अगेंस्ट पीपल? लाहौर फोर्ट वाज हेल होल, नो, तो दे डिड ऑल काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स अगेंस्ट अस। तो वही क्या एक झटके में आपने सब साफ कर दिया। कितने अच्छे लोग थे, आए यहाँ राज किया, माउंटबेटन की जय हो, प्यार मोहब्बत से चले गए। तो उसमें ये आर्गुमेंट उन्होंने भी थोड़ा सा डिट्टो किया है, ब्रिटिश साइड ने बोला नहीं, लेकिन दे आल्सो प्रमोट, बिकॉज व्हेन दे से गुड थिंग अबाउट गांधी जी, इसेंशियली इट रिफ्लेक्ट्स वेल गुड ऑन देम। अब ये आइडिया धीरे धीरे आपको ऑफकोर्स इंग्लैंड वगैरह में, यूरोप में फेमस हो गया। हमारे साहब लोग वैसे ही यहाँ पे, उनका शरीर यहाँ रहता है हाथ में, उनकी वहां रहती है न्यूयॉर्क के सेंट्रल पार्क में, ये भी प्रमोट कर रहे हैं। चाहे अच्छी बात है, मुझे भी कल को बच्चा सेटल करना है, नथिंग रॉन्ग इन दैट। My only contention ki don't become Bobby Jindal. That's what only. Otherwise, I have maximum friends supporting me in England and America. Many of them are more Indian than I am, but I don't become Bobby Jindal. That's what my problem is. So ये लोग वहां जाकर के पूरा जो इलीट आपका जो ये आपका हिंदुस्तान में जो आईआईसी वाला जो क्राउड है कि सारा दुनिया को देखना है, तो वो वही वेस्टर्न लेंसेज लगे हुए साहब। वो तो सुभाष बड़ा खराब आदमी था यार, वो तो हिटलर के पास चला गया, हिटलर वाज इवल, ऑफ कोर्स हिटलर वाज इवल, एंड सो वाज सद्दाम हुसैन। He was our chum, Hindustan's. Why? Because in all Gulf, state, he was the only country, Iraq, supporting India on Kashmir. When we chose the nuclear, we detonated nuclear bomb, Atalji's time, Saddam Hussein supported us. इंटरनेशनल रिलेशनशिप के ऊपर आपका आपका नेशनल इंटरेस्ट काउंट होता है। वेरी फेमस, आई वेंट टू यूएस, आई शोड देम सम टेप, डोनाल्ड रम्सफेल्ड, एनिमी ऑफ एनिमी इज माय फ्रेंड। आप में और क्या कॉमनैलिटी है? इनमें बहुत अच्छा टेप था अभी इंग्लैंड के, आपके वो प्राइम मिनिस्टर थे, वो सऊदी अरेबिया से क्या आपकी क्या कॉमन वैल्यूज है सऊदी अरेबिया की और इंग्लैंड की, सऊदी अरेबिया की और अमेरिका की? व्हाट कॉमन वैल्यूज डू यू हैव? नथिंग। सिक्योरिटी, नेशनल इंटरेस्ट। और दुनिया जहान भर के उन्होंने थ्योरी फ्लोट कर दी कि साहब वो तो मार्टिन लूथर किंग, अरे भैया मार्टिन लूथर किंग, मे गॉड ब्लेस हिज सोल, मार्टिन लूथर किंग वाज ट्राइंग टू सीक कंसेशन फ्रॉम हिज ओन गवर्नमेंट। He was not fighting a foreign, power sitting in his country. The path we needed to follow, which Subhash Bose talked about, was the George Washington path. कि बॉस्टन की गलियों में निकाल के जूते निकाल के लोगों को बाहर निकाल के मारो। दैट इज हाउ यू कैन रिमूव अ फॉरेन इन्वेडिंग पावर। आपका ये उसको भी डाल दिया बीच में उठा करके, फैशनेबल हो गया हर जगह। वो जब से जॉन लेनन का गाना है ना, ऑल वो इमेजिन ऑल द वर्ल्ड पीपल, इट्स अ गुड फैशनेबल थिंग टॉक अबाउट पीस। फॉलो करे ना करे, बात दूसरी, गाने गाने अच्छा लगता है कि सब अपना नेल्सन मंडेला साहब भी बड़े गांधीयन है। अरे भैया नेल्सन मंडेला के सपोर्टर जरा गूगल सर्च कीजिए, यूट्यूब में जाइए, वो तो फिदल कास्ट्रो भी उनके सपोर्टर थे, उनके मोहम्मद गद्दाफी भी उनके सपोर्टर थे, उनके जाके गले गले मिलकर के आए हैं वो। भगवान भला करे। अपने अपने यहाँ पर भी आए थे, कलकत्ता में आए थे छूटने के बाद। अपने मंडेला जी यहाँ पर आए हैं कलकत्ता में, उन्होंने बोला कि सुभाष बोस से भी हमको इंस्पिरेशन मिली है। और उनको क्वेश्चन लोगों ने किए थे, अमेरिका में गए, न्यूयॉर्क में, नैन्सी जब छूटने के बाद में उनको पूछा कि आप तो गद्दाफी की तारीफ करते हो, आप तो उसकी क्यूबा के प्रेसिडेंट की वो तारीफ करते हो। उसने कहा जी हमारी मदद की उसने, हर एक कंट्री की नेशनल सिक्योरिटी है, हमारे अपने इंटरेस्ट उनके साथ में। आपका दोस्त नहीं है, मेरा दोस्त है। एवरी कंट्री इन द वर्ल्ड गोज बाय इट्स ओन नेशनल सिक्योरिटी, वी आर ओनली कंसर्न, दिस इज नॉट पर्सनल रिलेशनशिप। यू हैव टू सी क्या करना। अब प्रॉब्लम हमारे यहाँ पे क्या है हिंदुस्तान के अंदर, कि हम यहाँ बैठे हैं जी साहब दिल्ली में अपने जिम खाना क्लब में, है बड़ा बड़ा गलत काम हो गया, बिल्कुल गलत काम हुआ है कि यूरोप में बेचारे ज्यूज को मारा गया बड़ी बुरे से। हमारा आई एम प्रो इजराइल, वी आर ऑफ कोर्स वी ऑल फील वेरी बैड। इवन इफ कोई पाकिस्तान में लोग मारे हमको बुरा लगता है, ह्यूमन बीइंग है, हमें किसी बेचारे इनोसेंट आदमी को मारे बुरा लगता है। दुश्मन कंट्री में बुरा लगता है, वो तो बेचारे हमारे दोस्त हैं अभी। लेकिन मेरी प्रॉब्लम प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड कीजिए, मैं हिंदुस्तानी हूँ, मेरा पासपोर्ट इंडियन है अभी। मेरे को चिंता उसकी ज्यादा नहीं है, मुझे चिंता इस बात की है कि वो हिंदू फोब बैठा था आपका चर्चिल, जो कांग्रेसियों को अब नजर आ रहा है। वो पहले भी लोगों को मालूम था कि वो गाली गलौच दे रहा है हमारे को, और हमारे मिलियंस ऑफ पीपल यहाँ मर रहे हैं। पहले मैं अपने घर की चिंता करूंगा कि मेरे यहाँ लोग मर रहे हैं, मेरे यहाँ लोगों को भूखा मार रहे हैं, फिर मैं आई विल गो एंड टॉक अबाउट कि सब वो हिटलर ने बंदे लोग वहां मरे हुए हैं। लेकिन अगर मेरे दिल में ये हो कि मुझे नोबेल पीस प्राइज चाहिए, मेरे को वहां तालियां बजवानी अंग्रेजों के सामने, तो हाँ जी वो जी इंग्लैंड में ऐसा हो रहा है, वहां ऐसा हो रहा है। पर किस्मत देखो, 11 बार पंडित जी का नाम किया, नोबेल पीस प्राइज में ठेंगा उनको मिला। गांधी जी का नाम किया, उनको भी नहीं मिला नोबेल पीस प्राइज। और मिला किसको? फिदल का, ओ सॉरी, आपने वो यासर अराफात को, बंदूक लेके चलते थे हमेशा जेब में, उनको मिल गया नोबेल प्राइज। डॉक्टर हेनरी किसिंजर गॉट नोबेल पीस प्राइज ना, फॉर ऑल दैट ही डिड इन साउथ ईस्ट एशिया। दिस इज द रियल वर्ल्ड। ऐसा नहीं चलता ये फॉरेन पॉलिसी ना। एक मैंने किसी को बोला, कोई मुझे मिला यहाँ पे, वो बड़ा तारीफ कर रहा था कि वो तो बड़ा खराब था हिटलर विटलर करके। मैंने कहा तुम्हारे कितने बंदे मार दिए उसने? वो आई एम नॉट डिस्प्यूटिंग ही वाज इविल, दैट्स फाइन, But how many Indians did he kill? Gio, how many Indians were killed because of Musharraf? जब यहाँ पर आया था प्रेसिडेंट बन के, तो तुमने दिया था ना गॉड ऑफ ऑनर, तुम्हारी फौज ने उसको क्यों दिया था गॉड ऑफ ऑनर? कहते डिप्लोमेसी है वो। हाँ बेटा, तुम्हारा वो एक हिंदी में कहावत है कि तुम्हारा प्यार प्यार हमारा प्यार चक्कर, तो तुम करो तो भैया ये हो गया, हम करे तो ये हो। भाई ये डिप्लोमेसी होती है। यही सुभाष बोस ने कहा था जब वो जर्मनी में गए 30s में। ही मेट हेमन गोरिंग, came back. He was have a Jewish couple was his friend Kitty and Alex. He told Kitty, this is terrible, but it has to be done. India has to become free. Told the young couple, leave this country. They left the country, went to America, Connecticut, if I'm not wrong. Kitty wrote a book, Subhash Bose, as I knew him. She explained everything about him, and this is an American Jewish lady. So this is how things unfolded. But when they came to power, उन्होंने ये पूरा फ्लोट कर दिया, और ये पूरा गांधीयन मिथ जो है ये पूरे वर्ल्ड में धीरे 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 सर्कुलेट हो गया कि साहब कितने अच्छे लोग थे अंग्रेज, कितने अच्छे थे गांधी जी, सारे मिल बांट के चले गए। उसके बाद से यू कैन नॉट इमेजिन गवर्नमेंट की मशीनरी को हाथ में लेके जो स्टेट स्पॉन्सर्ड होक्स जो उन्होंने क्रिएट किया है, कोई अकाउंटिंग नहीं है सर कितने बिलियंस ऑफ डॉलर्स इस पे खर्चा होता है। गांधी ये, गांधी वो, गांधी पाकिस्तान। मैं शिकागो में गया, वहां हमारा कॉन्सुलेट वाला बैठ के उनको घुटियां पिला रहा था कि भारत में ऐसी चीज है कि हम लोग बिना मतलब फोर्स के हम काम कर लेते हैं। अरे यार, वर्ल्ड की 3rd लार्जेस्ट आर्मी खड़ी है, भगवान भला करे, क्या बात कर रहे हो आप लोग वहां जाकर के? क्यों आप उनको बरकला रहे हो बेचारों को, उनको अमेरिकन को, कि हमारे फोर्स से काम नहीं होता? बट ये पूरी एक इंडस्ट्री बन गई है बड़ी जबरदस्त। और जैसे अभी गांधी जी का जो हुआ था 150 साल, 150 करोड़ खर्चा किया गया सिर्फ उस इवेंट के ऊपर। उसके अलावा जो और पूरा धंधा पानी चलता है दुनिया भर का, ये है वो है फलाना ढमकाना, गांधी पीस फाउंडेशन, सो ऑन सो फोर्थ। उसके एग्जांपल दूंगा तो आपके रोंगटे खड़े हो जाएंगे। बहुत एग्जांपल है मेरे पास उसके बड़े अच्छे अच्छे। कैसे लोगों ने लोगों को पागल बनाया, सारा खानदान सेटल कर दिया फॉरेन कंट्री में, वो कहते हैं हम तो पीसफुल आदमी है। तो ऑब्वियसली आप पीसफुल हैं, आपने फौज में जाना नहीं, आपके बच्चे फौज में जाएंगे नहीं। आपको तो दिमाग में कि गूगल में नौकरी मिल जाए मेरे बच्चे को। पीसफुल कंट्री है भैया, बड़ा अच्छा लगता है, मुझे भी अच्छा लगता है, बड़ा सिएटल बड़ी वेरी नाइस सिटी। पॉइंट ये है कि ये इस तरह का जो पूरा मैकेनिज्म ये पूरा खड़ा हो गया, और ये दबा के पैसा गया। आप किसी रेस्टोरेंट में जाइए, किसी होटल में जाइए, वो गरीब वेटर को आप 10 रुपए देंगे, वो जिंदगी भर सलूट मारेगा बेचारा आदमी को। 150 करोड़ का खर्चा आपने किया, दुनिया भर के लोगों को पैसा जिम में गया। जितना मैं अपनी लाइफ खराब करके बैठा हूं, अगर मैंने ये जितना काम कर रहा हूँ सुभाष बोस पे, अगर मैंने 2% गांधी पे कर दिया होता, आई वुड बी हैविंग अ पद्मश्री, आई वुड बी सिटिंग इन राज्यसभा बाय नाउ। तो ये पूरा मैकेनिज्म धंधा पानी ये है जो वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज में बहुत अच्छा चलता है, वो सब बड़े बड़े लोग कर रहे हैं। आप नंदिनी जी प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड द ग्रेविटी ऑफ सिचुएशन। दिस नैरेटिव हैज सो मच मनी राइडिंग ऑन इट, फॉरेनर्स, ब्यूरोक्रेट्स, एवरीबॉडी हैज गेन फ्रॉम दिस मिथ ऑफ कि नॉन वायलेंस से अंग्रेज हट गया यहाँ से। You expect the Prime Minister of India to come on television and say that the man was alive, he was sitting in India, these are the reasons, and we could not do anything. Unfortunately, hell will break loose in this country. People will start fighting. Of course, not everybody is a Netaji fan, and men will come around. This point will come out eventually. The whole thing is about legacy. Oh my God, we became free because of this reason. और ये लोग उठा करके सारा का सारा क्रेडिट जो है वो नॉन वायलेंस पे चेक दिया लोगों ने। अब जिन लोगों ने इस पूरे नैरेटिव से जो एडिफिस खड़ा हुआ है, जिन्होंने इनसे बैठ के धंधा पानी कमाया, जिन्होंने इसको गेन किया है, वो क्या चुप बैठे रहेंगे क्या? उनका तो इंटरेस्ट, उनकी तो दुकान बंद होगी ना। और ये लोग बड़े बड़े लोग हैं जो बड़ी बड़ी पोजीशंस में रह चुके हैं, इंपॉर्टेंट लोग हैं। ऊपर से उनको प्रॉब्लम यह है कि नेताजी को आप मार्केट नहीं कर सकते इंग्लैंड अमेरिका में। यू कैन ब्रांड महात्मा गांधी वेरी वेल, न्यूयॉर्क में मूर्ति लगी है, पार्लियामेंट स्क्वायर में मूर्ति लगा दी, सुभाष की तो लगेगी नहीं। तो ये पूरा एडिफिस जो हिलेगा, और द वेरी फैक्ट इफ देर आर, आई कीप टेलिंग पीपल कि अगर 10 आदमी नेताजी को सपोर्ट करते हैं, कभी कलकत्ता आइए, मैं आपको दिखाता हूँ कि कितने गांधी खानदान के चमचे यहाँ बैठे हुए बंगाल के अंदर, कलकत्ता के अंदर। तो टसल वसल मार काट ये वो इतना आसान नहीं है। सुभाष चंद्र बोस इज नॉट अ स्मॉल फ्राई, ही वाज एबल टू डिफीट गांधी ट्वाइस। द ओनली मैन हु कुड कम एनीवे, हु डिफीटेड महात्मा गांधी। यू आर मेकिंग अ फिल्म ऑन महात्मा गांधी's life, not a single shot on Subhash Bose, the only man who defeated him twice. उनके बाप से उन्होंने बड़ा था, अकेला आदमी था, दे ऑल गैंग्ड अप अगेंस्ट हिम एंड येट ही डिफीटेड देम। सो तो ये कहानी है। तो ये, हाँ जी, तो दिस इज द, अब होना है कि अगर नेताजी का ट्रुथ बाहर आएगा तो आपका गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया का ऑफिशियल नैरेटिव डिस्ट्रॉय हो जाएगा। उस नैरेटिव पे इतना पैसा लगा है, इतना जबरदस्त उसके ऊपर 50-70 साल में बिल्डअप किया है कि नोबडी वांट्स टू इवन दे शडर टू थिंक ऑफ हाउ वी डिसमेंटल इट। एंड प्रॉब्लम है कि जो नैरेटिव आप डालेंगे वो आपका वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज में नहीं बिकने वाला आराम से।
अनुज, आई थिंक
इसीलिए गवर्नमेंट इसको हाथ नहीं लगा रही है। आई विल कम टू द थ्योरीज लेटर ऑन, बट दिस इज द रीजन व्हाई दिस इज द होल स्पेक्ट्रम, बिकॉज एनी सेंसिटिविटी व्हिच वाज देयर अबाउट सेकंड वर्ल्ड वॉर or whatever, all that Gumnami Baba said, even if I assume everything he said was true, अब कोई सेंसिटिविटी इस टाइम पे नहीं बची, बहुत लेट हो चुका है। 9/11 के बाद दुनिया बदल चुकी है। वो वी आर नॉट लिविंग इन द सेम वर्ल्ड एनी मोर, इट्स टू डिफरेंट प्लेस, थिंग्स हैव मूव्ड ऑन। President Obama came to India. He opened his lecture with Jai Hind. I'm sure the Americans know कि जय हिंद का नारा कहाँ कैसे नाजी जर्मनी में कैसे कैसे कॉइन किया गया था. This much meant, but things will change. In fact, John Major, when he was to come to India, unfortunately this time the Boris could not make it because of COVID. But when he came, actually they were thinking of rehabilitating Subhash Chandra Bose. Let's bygone be bygone. Nobody wants to live in past. I'm so, but then India में problem ये आ रहा है कि आपकी internal problems बहुत सारी होने वाली हैं. और एक चीज मैं आपको बताऊं, लास्ट टाइम ये जो अहिंसा के पुजारी हैं खासकर कांग्रेस वाले, वो कितने अहिंसा के पुजारी हैं जरा सिखों से पूछिए आप 84 वाले कांड को लेकर के. तो ये चुप नहीं बैठने वाले. आई विल गिव यू एन एग्जांपल ऑफ कंसर्निंग दिस सो कॉल्ड गुमनामी बाबा, देन यू विल अंडरस्टैंड कि हाउ सीरियस अ थिंग दिस इज. बट दैट इज व्हाट इज नंदी जी, द प्रॉब्लम इज कि इस बात को आप रेगुलर टेलीविजन डिबेट पे नहीं बोल सकते, क्योंकि वो फॉर्मेट ही ऐसा है कि आप आधे घंटे में 6 बंदों को बढ़ाते हैं. तो मैं क्या बोलूं, मैं बता सकता नहीं. अगर मैं नाम लेना शुरू करूंगा लोगों को समझ ही नहीं आएगा. तो आई ऑल्सो लुक लाइक अ फूल व्हाट आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट. बेचारे एंकर को मालूम कुछ होता नहीं है. So this is possible now only either in a presentation where I have a PowerPoint, I can show you documents, I can show you videos, all that. For example, मंडेला की बात करो, वीडियो अवेलेबल है, भगवान भला करे, सब कुछ दिखा सकते हैं कि ये है, ये है, ये है. तो वहां मजा आता है. या फिर ये जो है कि एटलीस्ट आई कैन टॉक टू यू एंड कम से कम टाइम का कंस्ट्रेंट नहीं है और आई कैन, दिस इज हाउ इट इज. तो that's the sorry, आपने 3-4 सवाल पूछे, वो सारे इतने कॉम्प्लेक्स हैं कि मुझे पहले पे ये बोलना पड़ा.
Thank you so much, Anuj. And I think आपकी बातें सुन के कुछ ऐसी चीजें, you feel कि when the fake narrative becomes such a powerful tool, and we've seen how this fake narrative became such a powerful tool,
Yes.
and how it has really messed up the real truthful stories, and how we still do not know. It's really shocking, and I hope that sense prevails, and we soon have the real stuff about Subhash Chandra Bose. At least for Indians, we rightly need to know what happens to Subhash Chandra Bose. Did he go to Russia? Was he really Gumnami Baba? When, where, how? We don't know, but we have some faith, we have some hope. And I think on that note, thank you so much, Anuj Dhar, for talking to all of us at Reach India. For all of you joining us on YouTube, please continue to like and subscribe.
Thank you very much.
And we'll join again soon with another such webinar. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you very much.